continue with mudita practice to maintain the momentum. You know that it doesn't take a lot of effort to get into the mood of mudita. At the same time, mudita also has a lot of work to do, in a sense that it diagnoses the subconscious habits of the mind and then applying the treatment both through mindfulness, satipatthana, non-judgmental meditation, and also through mudita itself. So mudita meditation is also about purification of the mind. In today's description, we may call this as one of the most experimented ways to develop EQ, emotional quotient. This evening, we are going to focus more on the people we have been made to compete with by the system. When we were young, we were made to compete. We didn't know we also competed with people in our class, in our school, in our monasteries, between monasteries, like that. There is a perception that if we don't compete, we won't work hard, we will not have motivation. There is this perception. To meet this perception is beneficial only in the short term, but it causes a long-term damage. We will feel insecure forever if we don't heal ourselves. Especially with mudita, and try to reconnect with the people we competed with, the people we used to see as our threat. So this evening, I encourage you to focus on this point. Of course, first you would be working on yourself. About 5 minutes, 6 minutes, take time to just rejoice in your own effort, in your own good work. If you're writing, look at your writing. Look at the way you put in a lot of effort to even come up with a topic, then with a synopsis and the abstract, and then with the structure. A lot of reading, a lot of thinking through. Even if you have not finished that, you can look at that and then be proud of yourself. Rejoice in the effort that you have put in. You have also written many essays, you have read many books, attended many lectures. Not just here, but also before you came to our university, in any other universities. So all your life you have put in a lot of effort, and they are the reason for you to feel prouder, to feel good about yourself. Allow yourself to congratulate yourself. So when you got the momentum, when you got the feeling of mudita, then that would be a time to focus on the people who compete with you or you compete with. At work, or in the study, or maybe in life, it's important to look at them, to try to look at the positive point, positive things in their life, their hard work, their achievements. If we don't do this, those people, they will remain the source of irritation, the source of tension. Whenever we think about them, our mind, our mind, our subconscious mind has registered them as competitor, as a threat. So it's important now that we change that narrative, we change that emotional default position to look at them as people who have the same aspiration as us, who want to achieve something, who want to contribute into the society, who are afraid of failure, who want to increase the value of their life, who know how precious life is. So they are just like us. They may have the same, they may have different opinion, they may have different attitude, different way of doing things. Sometimes they may be a little bit annoying. But that's the reason, the very reason we should look at the good thing they have to balance the picture that we have of them. The picture that we have about them is almost entirely negative. So it's important we balance those subconscious pictures that we have. Always hold mindfulness closely and employ mindfulness along the way. Whenever there is tension, whenever there is disinterest, whenever there is automatic negative thinking, just bring in non-judgmental mindfulness to acknowledge those reactions and then go back to mudita. The people that we used to be annoyed with, we used to be irritated with, the people that we used to have a heated argument, they are the people we need to reconcile with emotionally. Because if we don't, they will always remain a source of negative emotion, a source of negative emotional reaction in our heart. that's not a very wise decision to keep those people as the source of our unhappiness. They would be holding the key to our happiness. So it's very important that we look at them. Sometimes the people we disagree with, sometimes we argue with. When we feel frightened, when we feel threatened, subconsciously, the protective mechanism, the so-called parasympathetic system, comes in to protect ourselves. And the way we usually do is by looking at something negative about that person and then console ourselves that that person is not good in this way, is not good in that way, has a lot of defect and shortcoming. Why we do that? Because subconsciously we feel threatened. So we need to convince ourselves that we have nothing to fear. That's the psychological process of competition. And those arguments that we come up with to downplay the positive things and the achievements of those people, the argument we come up with usually, they are always biased. In Pali we call akati. It's a form of corruption, bias, prejudice. If we don't like a person and we form a biased opinion, this is called dosa akati. Dosa akati. Sometimes we fear. We fear of being overshadowed. We fear of being outdone, by certain people. And as a result, we form an image of them in a more negative way, just to reassure ourselves. So it comes from fear. That's called bayakati. Bayakati, that's bias or prejudice that comes from fear. So we can look at the four akati emotionally. From the study of emotion. So this evening, one of the most obvious sources of biased emotion is the people we compete with, the people we don't like, the people who don't like us, the people who don't actually approve us. Maybe the same co-religion among the Buddhists, or maybe outside the Buddhist community. For whatever, it's important to have some positive view on those people. So we will be spending time only on these two today. Number 1 and number 4. Number 1 is ourselves. Think about the good thing in your life. Rejoice in them. Congratulate yourself. Don't worry, this will not be leading you to become egoistic, because The remedy is in the next step, the very next step, which is mudita on the people that we don't like, the people who don't like us, the people we don't approve of, the people who don't approve us, the people we compete with. Sometimes the system encourages us to compete so that we feel insecure and work hard. Sometimes it's not the system, but it's the human nature. For whatever reason, it's important to recollect, revisit a few people, 2, 3 people, at least in your life, that you feel, are competitors. And we have about 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to do this. If you get stuck, just come back to yourself, to mudita for yourself, or breathing in and out, then do mudita for yourself, and then go to the main targeted object for this evening, the challenging people. So you can start your meditation now. I'll be switching to the Burmese language. It's the time to dedicate our meditation practice to the Triple Gems and share the merit. အခုတရားထိုင်တဲ့ကုသိုလ်ကိုယန္နာသုံးပါးတရားထိုင်တဲ့ကုသိုလ်နဲ့ယန္နာသုံးပါးကိုပူဇော်ဖို့အချိန်ရောက်ပါပြီပြီးတော့အမြဝေပါမယ်ဣမာယဓမ္မာနုဓမ္မပါတိပါတိယဗုဒ္ဓံဣမာယဓမ္မာနုဓမ္မ ฏิปฏิยาธัมมังอิมาญาธัมมานุธัมมังปฏิปฏิยังสังอาดาอิมาญาธัมมังปฏิปฏิยังจาติจาราจาติมรณะมังปฏิมุจจิสามิอิดัมเมปุญญาอาสวะขยาวะหังโหตุอิดัมเมปุญญานิพพานัสสะปัจจโยโหมังปุญญาภากังสัพพสัตตานังเดมะอุภาเจนะกุโสมิตินังเฮาคาสราดักขาไลสังปารมีมาไลเซนกัมปาตังเสงตาโรมาเจนบีเจนสามเจนสัจเจนโคนเวยาสัตตะนาสกาวะละแทนโทโหมโหมจงจงสาธุอนุโมทนาไลหักกุศลวันฮีเพ่งเบ่งกันเสงเสสักกันเลยตานะสาธุสาธุสาทานะยาศีลายาภาวนาญาเท่าเจ้าข้าตั้งเสียงตั้งลงอย่าโดหงโดหันหิมอำไลคนหิมอำไลสัตวาหิมอำไลย้อนผักอังวัดให้มาหูใจเฮาขาดถอดเต้าหอดเตียเสือสาอามาตาเนอันสักกันเลยตาโนสาธุสาธุสาธุวันดามิบันเตสัพพะอัปาราดังคามาธรรมเมบันเตมายากตังบุญญังสามินังอนุโมทิตาภังสามินังกตังบุญญังไมหังตาตาปังสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิวันตามิสัพพิติโยวิวัจจันตุสุขโรโควินัสตุมหาเดบวันดวันตรายาสุขิติกายุโกภวะอภิวาทนาสิริสนิจังมุตตาปัจจายโนจัตตารโอธรรมวัฏฏันติอายุวันโนสุขังบาลังcomment กันเลย question กันเลย ราในขาสังโหตราในข่าวดัง4 ปีไปเนี่ยโห2 อันกันนะโหของสอนคือกรุณาทั้งมุทิตากรุณาเนี่ยผมเพราะว่าเนี่ยมันเหมือนใจเขาเนี่ยเขาได้ขึ้นอิรุตัวเก่าคนเขาในมือพองยามหยับผืนนั้นผืนทางที่อิรุตัวเก่าและปัญแห้งตัวเก่าไว้เมตตาในตัวเก่าเนี่ยเขาใกล้ขึ้นนี้ขึ้นตัวเก่าใกล้นี้ขึ้นว่าเขาเนี่ยมันไหลร้องถ้าเราเห็นเป็น3 ชั่วโมงก็มันไหลทั้งเสียอีกคน3 ชั่วโมงมันไหลทั้งเย็นเนี่ยใจเส้นนั้นมันออกมาข้างก้อยมันเห็นไหมครับก็เอากัดแตกเปิดให้จังไหนก็เปิดจังนั้นแหละพอมีสติเนี่ยเอาสติมันด้วยใจเนี่ยใจออโต้เนี่ยมันเปลี่ยนให้ออโต้ไม่เนี่ยใจมันเปลี่ยนเอาเนี่ยเอาสติในดังกรุณามันด้วยมันดูดีขึ้นเป็นอินลายเหตุดิบไหนครับใครลัดในเจ้าเขากองในตัวหลีก3 ชั่วโมงคือเด็กคำนั้นด้วยก็บอกไม่จะว่ากลมเย้าหลีกกลมไรหลีกแต่กองสมันใจเช่นนั้นพอด้วยชั่วโมงเย้าเนี่ยหรือหมอกให้10 นาทีจะทำเนี่ยพอเย้าขึ้นด้วยเนี่ยภายซ้ายเขาเลียบเห็นออกคนเขาว่าก็อ่อนลือหือเนี่ยแม้ว่า information retention เนี่ยอย่างตรงมันเนี่ยมันตรงมันโมเขาห้องว่า stress management เนี่ยมันโมยิบหลอกไม่เจอเนี่ยมันโม manage เนี่ยคำพ้องได้เลย1ไม่เจอ1จาก1ด้วยที่ไหนทำอะไรทั้งเป็นมันอะไรทั้งเป็นเหมือนจะหนึ่งเขาเห็นจันแอบมีที่ไหนเนี่ยตัวพูดถึงมันจันนั้นเนี่ยมันออกมานำนะออกมานำนะมันจะหนึ่งเจ้านั้นตัวพ่อกาออกมาที่มหาจุฬาออกมาจุฬาเกิดมาเขาอะไรที่ไหนอันเช่นนั้นเนี่ยเขาดูเลยขึ้นไข่วนขึ้นลงนั่นเองปั่นแห้งตัวเก่าเมื่อข้ากายเห็นเขาจากไหน แต่ดีกว่าสิโหเนี่ยมันมีหมูจักผักเงิน$65อยู่ดีตากงให้ออกก่อนเพิ่งพอเขาที่นั่นเนี่ยกำเลยขึ้นให้ปั่นแห้งใจตัวเก่าขึ้นให้ปั่นแห้งใจตัวเก่ามีเงินเหมือนมีเงิน$65กะฮอดดอนเมืองเหมือนนั้นมันไปมีส่วนนะผมนะเอาเงิน$20ออกมาให้ทีแรกเป็นเงินหวานเด็กกะเด็กความขี่แท็กซี่นั่นกับนั่นทำเสียหลายขึ้นใส่ขึ้นมันแรกวนกูวันนั่นนะเขาในเจ้าวนมันคำเดียวเพราะวนยาวเนี่ยนะเพราะวนตัดตัวเขาให้ทำอะไรเนี่ยทำเป็นอัตตาคนมีปุ่มมีอัตตาคนนั้นมันมีลงใจขึ้นใจลงอันใจโตกนั้นโตกกับอัตตาเนี่ยเขาเป็นนั้นทำได้เลยเหตุสิ่งนี้เขาวนอันเปิดเหตุดีเนี่ยเขาวนอันพ่อแม่เขาขัดใจอันโอ้ยกลัวเขาแสบสมองขัดใจเนี่ยเขาวนถึงเขาวนถึงเหมือนเส้นคำในที่เขาอันหยาบนั่นนะเอากวนอันแข่งกันกวนอันแมนกันฉะนั้นเขาวนลงดีเขาพอวนอะไรที่ไหนเนี่ยมีทางที่ให้เขาจะรอนั่นแหละเหมือนจากนั้นเมืองอะไรกันนั้นเป็นเมืองคนข่าวนะเมืองคนข่าวคนลำเนี่ยเป็นว้าห่างดีมุพลมา30 ปีเนี่ยมีคนลำเนี่ยเลยนางงามมันเนี่ยเป็นนางงามในนางงามอะไรกันมันยังเป็นลูกศิษย์นะถ้าเป็นลูกศิษย์มันคนโกงว่าอาสูเนี่ยห่างดีเนี่ยเป็นนางงามแต่มันก็ออกมาเลยมาห่างแค่เนี่ยเขาเลิกนางงามมันเนี่ยปีก็ไม่ได้2 ปีไม่ได้3 ปีไม่ได้4 ปีไม่ได้5 ปีไม่ได้6 ปีไม่ได้ตกกูปีอะไรปีที่7มาตั้งไงแล้วปีที่7มาตั้งไงแล้วยินสุดเนี่ยกอบทั้งมันไหลก็เพราะมันหมกปันแห้งตัวเก่านั่นปันแห้งตัวเก่าในมุติตาเนี่ยอันเก่าวนลองเปิดในที่เตยังเป็นการปันแห้งตัวเก่านะวนตัวลูกในอันคนขัดใจนำหนาที่ท่านจอมพุทธาเมืองไทยเขาเนี่ยนักข่าวต่าง4 ปีในเหตุให้พอเปลี่ยนมาจากไหนให้กลุ่มมึงพอยอมรับไหนก็บอกเขามีคนขัดใจนำนะพระเจ้าเช้าเขาเห็นจังไหน cái vốn anh nghĩ bằng chẳng này. That's about self-inspiration. Sometimes when he works hard and he doesn't think he was making any progress, so he feels discouraged. So I say mudita is about self-inspiration, self-encouragement. Well, as you can see, doing mudita for ourselves, unless we stop there and do mudita just for ourselves, it will not encourage ego. Like this evening, we focus on two groups. First is ourselves, the first group. The second group, the people we have tension with. So if we can feel mudita for those people we find it difficult, our ego is less and less. I want you to look at ego in terms of fear. In terms of fear. And why we behave selfishly, why people to behave in a way that have no consideration for other people. That's because they are so occupied with themselves. Because of fear. Fear means they are not able to connect with people around them. And so, I'll be talking more about this when we do karuna. But now we do mudita. Let's return to mudita. For a difficult person that you describe, my take is that you have to be realistic that people have shortcomings. But mudita is about looking any positive things in them. Any positive things in them. Otherwise, we will give up on those people. You look at the Buddha, he didn't give up on Ajatasattu. Okay, King Ajatasattu, when he was a prince, as we all know, he killed his father. His father was very close to the Buddha. One of the great benefactors of the Buddha. And the Buddha had an option to choose to focus only on negative things about him. And never had anything to do with him again, ever again. The Buddha had that option. But instead, the Buddha believed in him, in him as a human being. That human beings are able to reform themselves. There are things that the Buddha couldn't do. But because of this positive thinking, the Buddha treated him without prejudice when he came to see the Buddha. That was a very important lesson for us to see. Another thing, Angulimala. He killed 999 people according to this story. For someone just to have murdered one person, we don't want to have anything to do with that person ever again. But now, 999, not only that, the king would send an army to capture him, to kill him. And the whole county, the whole country, they were afraid of him. Whenever they went, they would go in a group of 10, 20, 30 like that. So he was a person that everybody hated. The fact that the Buddha still has something for him, to use a more poetic description, the Buddha still had a soft spot for him. You see? I find this to be some of the best emotion management that the Buddha did. So, his karuna and his mudita knew no boundaries, limitless. Manasang bhavaye abhrimanang vichane in the Metta Sutta. So our mudita had to be tested against that kind of difficult people. The Buddha still believed in him. The Buddha believed in him. Negativities and evil deeds, there would be a way to change him. That belief, that positive thinking, I attribute this to both karuna and mudita. To both karuna and mudita. The Buddha didn't give up. Usually in our case, we run out of patience. This is an expression we usually say, we run out of patience. Actually, we run out of compassion, we run out of mudita. At that moment, we don't believe in ourselves that we can have any positive influence on that person. And we also don't believe that that person still has some potential to change for the better. So, when we look at a person, when we see just negativity, we need to check our perception. We need to check our emotion. Whether our emotion is dominated entirely by negative bias, by frustration, by rejection, we need to be aware of that. If we become aware of that, we need to stop karuna and mudita for a while and then bring in vipassana, the non-judgmental mindfulness. Look at this. Look at this pain. Because this pain, to be looking at someone like that.
It's very interesting actually to think about people with whom I have competed. And interestingly, I see that they are friends. And maybe very close friends. And maybe they're engaging in the same activities. So in just one respect, I feel like I don't really want her to succeed. And if she's doing better, I feel like I don't feel well physically. Then I can tell, oh, I'm not well, I'm not doing so well, because I'm not well. So my body really actually fails. But I find it very healing to just meditate in this way and to actually have the wish only to succeed, and I'm happy with this success. So this is very healing. And it's not difficult to do at all.
No.
And I think just by repeated practice, it can be established in the mind. But I also found it difficult actually to find people whom I would like or who don't like me. And it's not because there are no such people. I think maybe the mind doesn't want to think about. So I have to search quite a bit. And then I how many people together. And it was very difficult actually until I started practicing metta first. Because I realized I don't have any kind of feeling for the person. So if there is no metta, then I see that I cannot feel any mudita. So would it be the case then that we, first of all, have to have this basic sensitive feeling to any being to be able to feel, to cultivate mudita?
It's very unusual that I start with mudita first. With people, with group of practitioners, I usually start with karuna. I would agree with you if you want to do metta first. That's your foundation. Then you should do that. What it gives you is that metta gives you concentration, and it orientates your mind towards other people. Metta, karuna, mudita, ubekha is about orientating towards other people, pain and joy. But this orientation can only be sustainable if we don't forget ourselves. Because a lot of hearts are wounded hearts, and they need healing. They need healing. So if we don't heal ourselves, if we don't look at our painful hearts, it's not possible to connect with the other wounded hearts. That's for karuna. The same is for mudita. We need to be able to connect with our own positivity. To do that, you can start with vipassana, you can start with samatha, you can start with anapan, you can start with metta. It's all okay.
I just feel that I have to, if I'm not wishing well to this person, how can I feel any, mudita?
My understanding of mudita, metta, karuna, mudita is that metta covers both karuna and mudita. I explained the other day. The reason I do this is based on the Abhidhamma approach. We look at the object. Karuna takes a painful object, mudita, a pleasant one. And metta takes both objects. Both objects. That is why metta is equal to both karuna and mudita. So, when you wish somebody well, mudita is part of it. But what I'm doing is a little bit more specific to base our experience on real life, real experience. To go through our life, the people we have come across, because it's very important to recognize trauma and heal them. Heal them. And this is one of the ways to do that. We can look at trauma as dukkha satya. And healing this is magga satya. And when we try to do mudita on someone, if we can't do it, if we find it difficult to do, that means mudita is diagnosing the roots, the causes why we can't do this. So that's samudaya satya. By doing this, when healing is taking place bit by bit, you can see. We are not there at Nirodha Satya yet, but it's on the way.
think sometimes we just have to emphasize that mudita is not only joy but the appreciation.
Yeah. Sure, appreciation is part of it. Yeah.
So in dealing with the competitive people, that I think I would say that appreciation is more relevant. That we use the sympathetic feeling because we compete with each other, and each of us, so we just would like to win to get to this place. So, and instead of we are running, and also we also place ourselves to that place and see. So
we put ourselves in his place, in his shoe,
yes,
and look at this situation.
So in that sense, that the appreciation is appealing.
Sure. That's to look at their hard work, that they have the same inspiration, to appreciate that. If we appreciate that, then we will be able to appreciate their success. Exactly. You want microphone? No.
Thank you very much, everyone. This is, I agree, today is more specific than yesterday. So yesterday we have just the conflict. So we have to cultivate mudita towards colleagues. But today is really challenging. This is on our trauma. So the trauma I had came up. And so this is a good chance for me to heal. So I feel like I'm a little bit ready now because I could cultivate myself, mudita myself, and then I can contemplate mudita towards the conduct, the peer-to-peer, up and down. And now I feel like I'm a little bit ready to heal the serious case. Because of course I have people I compete, whom I compete, and they compete as well. So I have. So some of the cases are really serious and it's trauma, really trauma. It's sometimes just pain of respect, or sometimes look down or something like that. So I didn't know that it was my trauma. But today I know this is trauma to me. Then I look at the case and then now I understand is mudita helped me to forgive those people very easily than before, easier than before. This is what I understand today. And my question is, I'm interested in teaching meditation. So I always check why you are teaching in this way and how you are teaching. I'm always I'm really interested in your guidance as well. So I'm not sure. Please let me confirm with you. You are now teaching us psychologically, not in a traditional way. Really, like step by step. We are taking out our trauma bit by bit, and then we are healing bit by bit. This is very psychological, I think. So please, I'm not sure if it's correct or not. And my question is, so do you think that kind of psychological teaching we use in meditation is useful for the people or not?
I'm ready to give away my secret. Branko, do you have any comment on this question?
So, yes, I like this kind of, this style of teaching.
I actually got into this without intention. I was given, on the very first day, the responsibility to run weekly meditation classes every Tuesday in London, North London, is a Sri Lankan Vihara. They invited me to London. And I did that, to the best of my ability. I prepared, I did. For 6 months, there were only 2. Another was Gloria Blake, who is Malaysian Chinese, migrated to England. After 6 months, first they were observing. After 6 months, they asked me a question. We like your teaching, but why no one comes to your class? I said, I don't know, you tell me. I don't know, you tell me. And they said, you need to know the psychology of the people in London. They need something specific. So, you can't say that you have meditation every week. You have to say that you're going to have meditation for 4 weeks, and then you start another 4 weeks. 10 weeks, then you start another 10 weeks. People, they need that kind of specific time frame. Okay, I do that. And what else you advise me? Both of them, they have been to many Tibetan centers. You see, the Tibetan monks, they declare the topic first. Which day, what you're going to be learning. And how long the talk will be. And then how long will we sit. And how much time we have for Q&A. You need to mention it. Yes, I do. That is why I got this habit. In Myanmar, maybe at the moment I'm the only one who announced the topic of Dhamma talk in Burmese in advance. I got this since 96, 24 years. So I would do that. When I do that, in the first attempt, yes, of course, many people came. But I was still speaking very traditionally, according to Mahasi, according to Mogul, the way that I have been told, and a little bit Katewai, like that. In the meantime, I learned from their questions. They ask all sorts of questions. I try to answer their question. So, without knowing, I got into psychology. Because they are very much psychology oriented. They are so learned psychologically. I started reading about emotion since 96. One of the simile that I use, like emotion is like a wild animal. I learned that since 96. I have been using it for more than 2 decades. Of course, those days there were not mindfulness movement. I was joking with a teacher from a high school nearby, Barbara Joe, because she was helping me to put up the notices, the meditation notices. And then she invited me to her school to speak to the kids. Then we need to expand to 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday for beginners, Wednesday for more advanced people. And I started joking with her, Barbara, if the NHS, there's National Health Service, that's the whole hospital. If the NHS is going to make use of meditation in hospital, I'm going to protest it. Now it happens. In all England hospitals, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, that's the body, the scientific body that controls, that determines what can be used and what can't be used in hospitals. They decided since about 6 or 7 years ago that meditation can be used in hospitals. And of course, being exposed to Western audience all the time, you cannot avoid learning about psychology. Actually, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi told me when I went to see him in Sri Lanka, that was a while ago, maybe nearly 20 years ago. From England, I went to see him in Kandy. He said, without knowing philosophy and psychology, we cannot understand the Buddha properly. So what the meditation teachers in Myanmar are teaching, although they don't use the word psychology, they don't employ Western psychology, what they are teaching is one form of psychology. So now I have given you all my secrets.